Emma Patterson rested her hands on her swollen belly, feeling the gentle kicks of her miracle baby. At 8 months pregnant, she still sometimes couldn't believe this was real. After 6 years of trying, 4 failed IVF cycles, 2 miscarriages, and enough hormone injections to make her fear needles for life, she was finally going to be a mother. "Is everything okay in there?" Michael, her husband, peeked into their bedroom. His eyes still lit up when he looked at her, even with her swollen ankles and the stretch marks she'd been meticulously applying cocoa butter to each night. "Just thinking about how lucky we are," Emma replied, smoothing down the pale yellow maternity dress she'd picked for today's baby shower, and trying not to worry about everything going perfectly. Michael crossed the room and placed his hands beside hers. "After everything we've been through to get here, a little rain or a slightly dry cake isn't going to ruin anything." Emma smiled, but the knot in her stomach tightened. It wasn't the weather or the catering that concerned her, it was her sister. Vanessa had always been the star of the family. 2 years younger than Emma, she seemed to effortlessly achieve everything that Emma struggled for: the perfect career as a marketing executive, the flawless figure maintained with seemingly minimal effort, the string of attractive boyfriends, and their parents' endless admiration. The sisters' relationship had always been a complicated dance of love and rivalry, with Vanessa usually leading. When Emma had first started fertility treatments, Vanessa had been supportive, bringing over meals after procedures and checking in regularly. But as the years dragged on and Emma's focus remained fixed on having a baby, something had shifted. Vanessa's support became tinged with impatience, then condescension, and finally a thin veil of judgment. "She's really stepped up helping with the shower," Emma said, more to herself than to Michael. "Mom says she's been there every day this week, finalizing details." Michael's expression remained carefully neutral. "That's great, she's trying, Michael. I know, Em, and I appreciate that. I just want today to be perfect for you." He kissed her forehead. "You deserve this celebration, and it was perfect at first." The backyard of Emma's parents' home had been transformed into a garden of pastel dreams. Paper lanterns swayed in the gentle May breeze, tables adorned with wildflower centerpieces dotted the lawn, and a magnificent 3-tier cake, lemon with buttercream frosting, Emma's favorite, presided over a table laden with gifts. Emma's heart swelled as she greeted each guest: co-workers who had covered for her during doctor's appointments, friends who had listened to her cry after each failed treatment, and family members who had contributed to their fertility fund. Michael's steady presence beside her made her feel safe and cherished. This was everything she had dreamed about during those dark years of waiting and hoping. Vanessa arrived fashionably late, stunning in a form-fitting blue dress that highlighted her slender figure. She hugged Emma carefully. "Look at you," Vanessa exclaimed, her voice carrying across the yard. "You're absolutely glowing. All those science experiments finally paid off." Emma winced at the phrasing but forced a smile. "Thanks for all your help with today. Everything looks amazing." "Anything for my big sister," Vanessa replied, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Today is your moment to shine." The afternoon progressed with games, food, and the ritual opening of gifts. Emma felt herself finally relaxing as she unwrapped tiny onesies and impossibly small socks. Then came time for toasts. Emma's mother went first, tearfully expressing her joy at finally becoming a grandmother. Michael spoke next, his voice thick with emotion as he praised Emma's strength and perseverance. Then, unexpectedly, Vanessa stood up, champagne flute in hand. "I'd like to say a few words about my sister," she announced, her voice carrying across the suddenly quiet gathering. Something in her tone made Emma's stomach clench. "As many of you know, Emma has wanted to be a mother for what feels like forever." Actually, Vanessa consulted her phone with theatrical precision. "It's been exactly 6 years, 2 months, and 5 days since she first told me they were trying. I know because I've been keeping track of this journey." Emma felt Michael tense beside her. "What most of you don't know are all the gritty details Emma probably wishes stayed private." Vanessa smiled sweetly. "Like how she had to use donor eggs because her own were, how did Dr. Kendrick put it? Oh yes, poor quality." A gasp rippled through the crowd. Emma felt the blood drain from her face. That information was private, something she and Michael had decided to keep between themselves, their doctor, and only their closest family members. Vanessa shouldn't have known. Or the fact that this wasn't even their first successful pregnancy. Vanessa continued, her voice dripping with false sympathy. Remember when Emma disappeared to her bedroom for 3 weeks last summer? That wasn't the flu, folks. Baby number one just didn't stick around. Emma felt Michael's arm tighten around her shoulders as tears blurred her vision. The buzz of shocked whispers filled the air. So let's raise a glass to Emma, Vanessa concluded, her eyes glittering with malice disguised as mischief. Who finally managed to keep a baby alive long enough for us all to celebrate. Third time's the charm, right sis? The silence that followed was deafening. Emma's world collapsed around her as the most painful chapters of her life were laid bare for casual consumption, served up like appetizers by the person who should have protected her most. The room spun around Emma as tears streamed down her face. Vanessa's words hung in the air like poison. Several guests averted their eyes, while others stared in shocked disbelief. Emma's mother had her hand pressed against her mouth, eyes wide with horror. I think that's enough, Michael said, his voice dangerously quiet as he stood up. His hand on Emma's shoulder was gentle, but she could feel the tension radiating through his fingers. Emma needs to rest now. Thank you all for coming. The authority in his tone brooked no argument. Emma allowed herself to be guided away, barely registering the apologetic murmurs and concerned touches from guests as Michael led her into the house and upstairs to her childhood bedroom. Once the door closed behind them, Emma collapsed into heaving sobs. How could she do that to me? Emma gasped between ragged breaths. Everyone knows now, everything we decided to keep private. Michael knelt before her, his face a controlled mask of calm that couldn't quite hide the fury in his eyes. Listen to me, Em. What Vanessa did was unforgivable. But I don't want you worrying about this right now. Think about our baby. Emma nodded, trying to control her breathing as Michael had learned to help her do during panic attacks. He placed his hand on her belly, and the baby kicked as if in response. I'm going to handle this, he promised quietly. But first, I'm going to take care of you. The next morning, Emma woke to several text messages from her friend Diane, who had left the shower early with a migraine. Just heard what happened. I'm so sorry, Em. I should have warned you. Call me when you can. Emma called immediately. I feel terrible, Diane said when she answered. I overheard Vanessa at Lilac Cafe last week. She was with that friend of hers who works at the fertility clinic, Sandra, I think. They were talking about the shower, and Vanessa was saying how she was going to finally put you in your place. I thought she was just venting. I never imagined she'd actually do something so cruel. Sandra, Emma's blood ran cold. Sandra Winters, the nurse? That's the one. They seemed really chummy. I'm so sorry, Em. I should have said something. After hanging up, Emma sat in stunned silence. Sandra had access to all her medical records, every treatment, every heartbreak, every intimate detail of her journey to motherhood. Michael, she called out, her voice shaking. I think I know how Vanessa got my medical information. Over the next few days, more revelations emerged. 3 friends called to apologize for not speaking up during Vanessa's toast, each revealing they'd seen glimpses of Vanessa's plan in the weeks leading up to the shower. One had seen Vanessa typing notes on her phone labeled Emma's shower speech. Another had overheard her practicing lines with barely concealed glee. Emma's cousin Rachel finally confirmed what Emma had begun to suspect. Vanessa's jealousy ran much deeper than she'd realized. She's always been like this with you, Rachel said gently over coffee in Emma's living room, 4 days after the shower. Remember when you made cheerleading captain in high school, and suddenly she spread those rumors that got you suspended? Or when you started dating Michael, and she told everyone at your engagement party that he'd asked her out first? Emma stared into her cup of decaf. I always made excuses for her. I thought it was just typical sister stuff. It wasn't, Rachel said firmly. And what she did at the shower wasn't impulsive. I've watched her undermine you for years, but this was calculated. Emma. She waited until you were at your most vulnerable, until you finally had something she couldn't take away, and then she tried to taint it. That evening, Emma received an email from Dr. Kendrick's office. The fertility clinic had conducted an internal investigation and discovered that Sandra Winters had indeed accessed Emma's records without authorization on 3 separate occasions in the past month. Sandra had been terminated immediately, and the clinic was reporting the HIPAA violation to the appropriate authorities. As Emma showed the email to Michael, something shifted inside her. The devastation that had consumed her since the shower hardened into something else, a cold clarity that she'd never felt before. "This isn't just about the shower," she said quietly. "This is about our entire lives, and I'm done letting her hurt me." The week following the baby shower, Emma moved through her days in a fog of hurt and betrayal. She ignored the series of text messages from Vanessa that began with defensive justifications. "It was just a joke. You're being oversensitive," and eventually evolved into half-hearted apologies. It was, "I'm sorry if you were offended." Her parents called daily, their voices strained as they tried to mediate a situation they clearly didn't fully understand. "She's your sister," her mother pleaded on Friday night, "and she feels terrible about what happened." "Not terrible enough to apologize sincerely," Emma replied, her voice flat. "And not terrible enough to admit she violated federal law to get my medical information." After hanging up, Emma found Michael in their nursery, assembling the crib that had been delivered the day before. Moonlight streamed through the window, casting his focused face in silver light. "My mom wants me to forgive and forget," she said, easing herself down into the rocking chair. Like always, Michael set down his screwdriver and looked up at her. "And what do you want?" The question hung in the air. What did she want? A part of her longed to retreat, to focus on her pregnancy and forget the hurt. Another part screamed for justice, for Vanessa to finally face consequences for her actions. "I want her to understand what she did," Emma said finally. "Not just to apologize because she got caught, but to really see how she's hurt me over and over again." Michael nodded slowly. "I've been thinking about this a lot. Confronting her directly won't work. She'll just get defensive and twist things. We need a more strategic approach." "Like what?" "Your family reunion is in 2 weeks, right? The one at your parents' lake house?" Emma nodded. The annual Patterson family gathering was scheduled for the weekend after next, a tradition that brought together extended family from across 3 states. "What if we wait until then?" Michael suggested, his eyes thoughtful. "Not to cause a scene, but to present the truth in a way she can't twist or escape from, with witnesses who matter to her." Over the next several days, what had begun as a vague idea transformed into a precise plan. Emma's initial hesitation gave way to cold determination as she and Michael methodically gathered evidence of Vanessa's long history of manipulation and betrayal. Rachel provided screenshots of texts from high school, where Vanessa had admitted to spreading the rumors that got Emma suspended. Emma's college roommate, now a lawyer in Boston, forwarded emails from when Vanessa had tried to sabotage Emma's internship application by sending false information to the company. Michael's brother recalled the night before their engagement party, when Vanessa had aggressively hit on Michael, then spun the story to make it seem like he had pursued her first. Most damning was the formal letter from the fertility clinic confirming the unauthorized access of Emma's medical records and the subsequent termination of Sandra Winters. When Emma called Sandra directly, the former nurse broke down in tears, admitting that Vanessa had manipulated her into sharing Emma's private information by claiming it was to plan a sensitive and supportive surprise for the baby shower. "She said she wanted to make a special speech acknowledging your struggle," Sandra sobbed. "I thought I was helping create a beautiful moment for you." In their home office, Emma and Michael created a timeline of incidents, each one documented with whatever evidence they could gather. What emerged was a pattern so clear and calculated that even Emma, who had spent a lifetime making excuses for her sister, couldn't deny it. "We're not doing this to hurt her," Emma said one night as they finalized their plan. Her hand rested protectively on her belly, where her baby girl kicked steadily. "We're doing this so she can't hurt anyone else the way she's hurt me." Michael nodded, his expression solemn. "This ends now. No more letting her behavior slide. No more excuses." 3 days before the family reunion, they made their final preparations. Michael spoke privately with Emma's father, requesting 15 minutes during Saturday night's dinner to make an announcement. Emma called her cousin Rachel, who agreed to safeguard copies of the evidence they'd gathered, just in case Vanessa somehow got wind of their plan. The stage was set. In less than 72 hours, Vanessa would finally face the truth of her actions, not with screaming or accusations, but with irrefutable facts presented calmly in front of the audience she valued most: family. The Patterson family lake house stood like a sentinel against the darkening sky as Emma and Michael pulled into the gravel driveway. Cars were already parked in neat rows. Aunt Judith's SUV, Uncle Robert's vintage Mustang, cousins' sedans, and Vanessa's glossy red convertible, parked prominently near the entrance. "You okay?" Michael asked, squeezing Emma's hand. Emma nodded, though her heart hammered against her ribs. "Let's just get through this weekend." Inside, the reunion was in full swing. The sprawling great room buzzed with conversation as family members caught up over drinks. Emma's mother rushed forward, enveloping her in a careful hug. "You look beautiful, sweetheart," she said, placing a gentle hand on Emma's belly. "Everyone's been asking about you." Emma forced a smile, scanning the room until she spotted Vanessa holding court near the fireplace, champagne flute in hand, surrounded by admiring second cousins. Their eyes met briefly, and Vanessa offered a small wave as if nothing had happened between them. The evening progressed with the familiar rhythm of family gatherings. Dinner was served buffet-style on the wide porch overlooking the lake. Emma picked at her food, barely tasting it, while beside her, Michael engaged in animated conversation with her relatives. To anyone watching, they appeared relaxed and happy, but Emma recognized the calculated purpose behind each interaction. She watched as Michael approached her Uncle Robert, a respected judge, and casually mentioned HIPAA violations and their legal ramifications. Later, he spent 10 minutes with her cousin Melissa, a hospital administrator, discussing the ethical implications of medical privacy breaches. "Did you hear about that nurse who got fired from Lakeside Fertility?" She overheard him asking Aunt Judith, who served on the hospital board. "Accessed a patient's private records and shared the information with someone unauthorized. Shocking breach of trust." Each conversation was a brushstroke in the portrait they were painting, subtle enough to seem natural, but unmistakably building towards something. Vanessa, oblivious to the undercurrents, floated through the gathering with her usual confidence. She had arrived with her latest boyfriend, an investment banker named Chase, who seemed perpetually glued to his phone. Whenever she approached Emma, others mysteriously appeared with questions or conversations, creating a buffer between the sisters. By Saturday afternoon, the atmosphere had subtly shifted. Emma noticed the curious glances, the hushed conversations that stopped when either sister walked by. At the lakeside barbecue lunch, Emma overheard her cousin Tyler asking Vanessa about the baby shower. "I heard it got a little intense," he said, his eyes studying her reaction. "People are so sensitive these days," Vanessa replied with an airy laugh. "It was just a little toast." Emma's always been dramatic. That evening, Emma retreated to the porch swing, needing a moment alone. The weight of what they were about to do pressed on her chest. Was this really the right path? Would exposing Vanessa's behavior repair anything, or would it just create a permanent rift in the family? Rachel found her there, offering a cup of herbal tea. "Having second thoughts?" she asked gently. "I don't want to destroy my family," Emma admitted. "But I can't keep pretending everything's okay when it's not." "The family's already damaged," Rachel pointed out. "It's just that all the damage has been falling on you." For years, inside, dinner preparations were underway for the traditional Saturday night family meal, the centerpiece of every reunion. Emma's father had insisted on grilling steaks despite the slight drizzle, and the dining room table had been extended to its full length, to accommodate everyone. As family members settled around the table, Emma caught Michael's eye. He gave her a reassuring nod. The file folder they had prepared sat innocuously beside his plate. Throughout the meal, tension simmered beneath forced pleasantries. Emma's mother tried too hard to keep conversations light, while her father's gaze kept moving between his daughters, his forehead creased with worry. Vanessa dominated discussions as usual, sharing stories about her recent promotion and plans to buy a condo in the city. "I'm just so blessed," she gushed. "Everything falling into place exactly as I'd hoped." Emma felt a cold resolve solidify within her as she watched her sister's performance. The baby kicked sharply, as if in solidarity. Near the end of the main course, just before dessert would be served, Uncle Robert raised his glass. "I'd like to propose a toast to our expanding family. To Emma and Michael, and their little miracle on the way." A chorus of agreement rippled around the table. Emma smiled gratefully, but before she could speak, Vanessa chimed in. "Yes, it really is a miracle. considering everything, she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Though I think we've celebrated enough at the shower, don't you think, Em? The table fell silent. Several family members exchanged uncomfortable glances. Actually, Michael said, his voice steady as he reached for the folder, I'd like to talk about that shower for a moment, if I may. Vanessa's smile faltered slightly. Ancient history, she said with a dismissive wave. We've all moved on. Have we? Michael asked, his expression calm but determined. Because I think there are some things this family needs to understand about what happened that day, and about a lot of other days before it. A charged silence fell over the dining room as Michael opened the folder. Emma's father half rose from his seat, as if to intervene, then slowly sat back down at Emma's almost imperceptible shake of the head. What exactly are you doing? Vanessa asked, a nervous laugh escaping her lips. Her boyfriend Chase finally looked up from his phone, sensing the shift in atmosphere. I'm setting the record straight, Michael replied, his voice steady and controlled. 2 weeks ago, at what should have been a celebration of our baby's upcoming arrival, you chose to publicly humiliate my wife by revealing deeply personal medical information that you had no right to know, let alone share. Several family members gasped. Emma's mother pressed her napkin to her lips, her eyes wide. You're being dramatic, Vanessa said, rolling her eyes. It was just a silly toast. Was it? Michael extracted a printed email from the folder and slid it across the table toward Uncle Robert. This is a formal notice from Lakeside Fertility Clinic, confirming that a nurse named Sandra Winters was terminated for unauthorized access to Emma's medical records. Would you like to explain how you knew details of Emma's egg donation and previous miscarriage, Vanessa? Details that even Emma's parents weren't aware of? All eyes turned to Vanessa, whose face had gone pale. Emma must have told me, she stammered. She didn't, Michael said firmly. But Sandra Winters did, after you manipulated her into violating HIPAA laws by accessing Emma's confidential medical records without authorization. He looked directly at Aunt Judith. As someone who serves on the hospital board, you understand the severity of this violation, don't you, Judith? Aunt Judith nodded gravely. It's a federal offense. The nurse could face significant fines and potentially lose her license. And what about the person who solicited that information? Michael asked, his gaze never leaving Vanessa. Potentially criminally liable as well, Aunt Judith replied quietly. Vanessa's face flushed. This is ridiculous. You have no proof I asked for anything. Without a word, Michael produced another document, a notarized statement from Sandra Winters describing in detail how Vanessa had convinced her to access Emma's records under the pretense of planning a supportive speech for the baby shower. Sandra has already provided this statement to the authorities, Michael said. The investigation is ongoing. A murmur rippled through the assembled family. Emma watched her sister's confident facade begin to crumble. But we're not just here to talk about the shower, Michael continued, his voice taking on a new edge that Emma had rarely heard. We're here to address a pattern of behavior that has gone unchecked for far too long. One by one, he began to present the evidence they had gathered, screenshots of messages from high school showing Vanessa admitting to spreading the rumors that got Emma suspended, emails proving she had sabotaged Emma's internship application, testimony from Michael's brother about Vanessa's inappropriate advances the night before their engagement party. This isn't just one isolated incident, Michael said, his eyes sweeping across the stunned faces around the table. This is a systematic campaign of jealousy and sabotage against Emma that has spanned decades. You've always been jealous of me, Vanessa shot back, her voice rising. Both of you, you couldn't stand that I was more successful, more popular. Is that why you tried to ruin the one thing Emma had that you didn't? Michael interrupted, his voice deadly quiet. A baby? A family? Is that why you had to taint even that joy? Emma's father cleared his throat. Michael, while I appreciate your concern for Emma, I'm not sure this is the appropriate. With all due respect, sir, Michael cut in, this family's reluctance to address Vanessa's behavior is exactly why it has continued for so long. Emma has suffered in silence for years while everyone made excuses for her sister. That ends today. He turned back to Vanessa, whose face had contorted with a mix of rage and panic. You accessed private medical records through deception. You used deeply personal information about Emma's fertility struggles you know caused her immense pain, to publicly humiliate her on a day that should have been nothing but joyful. And you did it all with calculated premeditation. That's not I didn't. Vanessa sputtered. Yes, you did, Emma said quietly, speaking for the first time. And it's not the first time you've hurt me, but it will be the last. Michael nodded to Rachel, who produced her phone and pressed play on a recording. Vanessa's voice filled the room, going to finally put her in her place. Little Miss Perfect with her miracle baby. Let's see how perfect she looks when everyone knows she couldn't even make her own eggs work. I've got all the details from Sandra. The recording continued, revealing the full extent of Vanessa's malicious planning. Emma watched as her relatives' expressions transformed from shock to disappointment to outright disgust. Turn that off, Vanessa shrieked, lunging for the phone. Rachel quickly pulled it away. That's illegal. You can't record people without their knowledge. Actually, Uncle Robert interjected, his judicial voice cutting through the chaos. Pennsylvania is a one-party consent state. As long as Rachel was part of the conversation, the recording is perfectly legal. Vanessa looked frantically around the table, seeking a sympathetic face and finding none. Even Chase was edging away from her, his expression horrified. You don't understand, she said desperately. Emma has always had everything. Perfect husband, perfect house, and now a perfect baby. Everyone always feels so sorry for her, poor Emma and her fertility problems, while I'm just an afterthought. That's what this has all been about? Emma asked, her voice breaking. You've been hurting me because you're jealous of my struggles, of years of pain and loss? Michael placed a final document on the table, a formal letter from a lawyer. This is a cease and desist order, he explained calmly. Emma and I have no desire to pursue legal action against you, Vanessa, despite having ample grounds to do so. All we ask is that you stay away from us and our child. No contact, no interference, no more harm. Vanessa stared at the letter, then at the faces around the table, her parents' shock, her relatives' disapproval, Chase's embarrassment, before her gaze finally settled on Emma's quiet resolve. Something seemed to snap behind her eyes. You think you've won, she screamed, rising from her chair so violently that it toppled backward. You think this makes you the better sister, the better daughter? You're nothing. You've always been nothing. That baby isn't even really yours. It's some random woman's eggs and Michael's sperm. You're just an incubator. Emma flinched as if slapped, but Michael's hand found hers under the table, squeezing tightly. That's enough, Emma's father thundered, standing up. Vanessa, apologized to your sister immediately. Instead, Vanessa snatched up the legal letter, tore it to pieces, and flung the scraps across the table. I don't need any of you, she shrieked, tears streaming down her face. I've never needed any of you, especially not you, Emma, with your perfect little life and your manufactured sympathy. I hope that baby don't, Michael warned, his voice like ice. Don't you dare finish that sentence. He pulled out his phone and held it up, revealing that he had been recording the entire confrontation. Everything you've said tonight has been documented. If you so much as look in Emma's direction again, this recording, along with all the evidence we've collected, goes directly to the district attorney's office. Vanessa's face contorted with a mixture of rage, humiliation, and something that might have been fear. She looked wildly around the room one last time before letting out a scream of pure frustration that echoed off the wooden beams of the lake house ceiling. You're dead to me. All of you, she shrieked before storming out of the dining room, nearly knocking over a side table in her haste. The front door slammed with such force that one of the decorative plates fell from the wall and shattered. Through the picture window, they watched Vanessa run to her car, still screaming incoherently, and peel out of the driveway in a spray of gravel, leaving Chase standing bewildered on the porch. In the silence that followed Vanessa's dramatic exit, the only sound was the distant rumble of her car speeding down the lakeside road. The shattered pieces of the decorative plate lay scattered across the hardwood floor, a fitting metaphor for the family gathering that had just imploded. Emma's mother was the first to move, crossing the room to kneel beside Emma's chair. Her hands trembled as she took Emma's in her own. I had no idea, she whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. All these years, I should have seen it. I should have protected you better. One by one, family members approached Emma, offering apologies, expressing shock, voicing support. Uncle Robert promised to connect them with a lawyer specializing in medical privacy cases, should they need one. Aunt Judith assured them she would personally follow up on the hospital's investigation. Cousins and second cousins alike expressed disbelief at the extent of Vanessa's deception. Her father remained in his seat, looking suddenly older than his 65 years. When the initial flurry of reactions had subsided, he approached Emma and Michael. "I've failed you," he said simply, his voice thick with emotion. "I saw what I wanted to see with Vanessa, made excuses, looked the other way." He straightened his shoulders, a flash of the retired military officer visible beneath the grandfatherly exterior. "That ends today. Whatever you need from us moving forward, you have it." Later that night, alone in their room at the lake house, Emma sat by the window watching moonlight dance across the water. The vindication she'd expected to feel was tempered by a profound sadness. "I never wanted it to come to this," she said as Michael joined her, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. "Part of me still loves her, despite everything." "That's because you have capacity for forgiveness that most people don't," he replied softly. "It doesn't mean what we did wasn't necessary." "I know." Emma leaned into his warmth. "I just hope someday she understands why." 3 weeks later, Olivia Grace Patterson entered the world after 18 hours of labor, 7 pounds, 4 ounces of perfection with her father's dark hair and her mother's determined chin. As Emma held her daughter for the first time, the pain of Vanessa's betrayal receded, replaced by a love so fierce it took her breath away. The family rallied around them in ways Emma had never experienced before. Her parents visited daily, bringing home-cooked meals and offering to watch the baby so the new parents could shower or nap. Cousins and aunts and uncles called and texted regularly. Even Emma's childhood friends, who had drifted away during her years of fertility struggles, reappeared with gifts and genuine support. Vanessa's absence was an unspoken void, but Emma refused to let it overshadow these precious early weeks with Olivia. The cease and desist letter remained in effect, and while Emma occasionally caught her mother looking sad when she thought no one was watching, no one suggested reaching out to Vanessa. Until the day, when Olivia was 2 months old, that a small package arrived at their door with a North Carolina postmark. Inside was a silver baby rattle, elegantly crafted, with Olivia's initials engraved on the handle. The accompanying note, written in Vanessa's familiar sloping script, was brief: "Emma, I'm in therapy now. Twice weekly. It doesn't excuse what I did, but I'm trying to understand why I did it. I'm sorry for the pain I caused. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted Olivia to have this. It was supposed to be my gift at your shower, before I ruined everything. VPS, I've moved to Charlotte, starting over. Don't worry, I'll respect your boundaries." Emma showed Michael the note that evening, as they sat on their porch swing, Olivia sleeping peacefully in her bassinet beside them. "What do you think?" she asked. Michael studied the note carefully. "It seems genuine, but it's your call, Em. We can send it back, keep it, or acknowledge it. Whatever feels right to you." Emma was quiet for a long time, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. Finally, she took out her phone and composed a brief text: "Thank you for the gift. It's beautiful. I hope your therapy is helping. Olivia is doing well." She attached a single photo of Olivia sleeping, then set the phone aside without sending it. "Not yet," she said to Michael's questioning look. "But maybe someday." As Olivia grew from newborn to infant to babbling, curious toddler, the wounds of the past gradually scabbed over. Emma and Michael attended family gatherings, where Vanessa's name was no longer taboo but spoken with careful neutrality. Occasional updates filtered through from relatives. Vanessa had completed a graduate degree, taken a job with a nonprofit, entered a stable relationship. On Olivia's 2nd birthday, Emma finally sent that text message with an updated photo of their daughter. The response came hours later, simple, restrained, hopeful: "She's beautiful, Emma. Thank you for sharing this with me. It wasn't forgiveness, not completely, but it was a beginning. Do you ever regret it?" Emma asked Michael one evening, as they watched 3-year-old Olivia chase fireflies in their backyard, her delighted giggles filling the summer air. Confronting Vanessa that way, Michael considered the question carefully. "I regret that it was necessary," he said finally. But I don't regret standing up for you, for us. Some truths need to be spoken, even when they're painful. Emma nodded, understanding. The exposure of Vanessa's betrayal had brought consequences neither of them could have fully anticipated. The family reconfigured, relationships altered, patterns of decades shattered and reformed. In forcing the truth into the light, they had changed everything. It wasn't about revenge, Emma said softly. Not really, it was about finally being seen. And breaking a cycle that would have continued to hurt you, Michael added. That would have eventually hurt Olivia too. Emma watched as their daughter spun in circles, arms outstretched, face tilted toward the darkening sky. The journey to this moment had been longer and more painful than she could have imagined when she first began trying for a baby all those years ago. But here now, with Michael's steady presence beside her, and Olivia's unbridled joy before her, she felt a peace she'd never known was possible. Worth it, she whispered, reaching for her husband's hand. All of it. Michael's fingers interlaced with hers, the gesture as natural as breathing after all their years together. Every step, he agreed. Let us hear. As if sensing their attention, Olivia turned and ran toward them, curls bouncing and eyes shining with pure happiness. Emma opened her arms to receive her daughter, grateful beyond words for the family they had fought so hard to protect, and for the husband whose love had given her the strength to finally break free from the shadows of the past.